All right, we're in the city of Johannesburg tonight with our town council debate conversation with the various political parties. You look at that council at the moment, it constitutes of 270 councillors, ANC taking 124 of those seats, 97 to the DA, the EFF with 30, IFP with 5, the AIC with 4, and the PA with 4, Al-Jamaa with 2, and 1 each for the UDM, COPE, ACDP, and the FF+. It's been, of course, currently governed by an ANC-led coalition. We're just over a week away to the local government elections. Newzroom Afrika's Nicolaus Bauer is live for us at the municipal council offices there. Nicholas, it's a room full of residents of Johannesburg. They are ready to iron out, I suppose, or even air their issues. What are they saying tonight at the council chambers?
Well, yes, good evening to you, Thabo. As you can see behind me here, the room is starting to fill up with not only supporters of the assembled candidates here today, representatives of various political parties, but indeed as well members of the public that have come out to add their voice to the concerns of citizens that are hoping to see some change this local government election. As I alluded to in that story that I put together for this debate, Johannesburg really at a crossroads. It's supposed to be the economic powerhouse of South Africa, but really is not leading the way when it comes to just basic service delivery. And we all think that this isn't necessarily related, but if a municipality is unable to provide something as basic as water and sanitation and indeed electricity, well, then what hopes of it fostering economic opportunities and economic development? Certainly, just a cursory look at any suburb in Johannesburg, and you're bound to find people sleeping rough on the streets, people really just absolutely down and out. And this has only been worsened by the impact of COVID-19. But as you can see behind me here, we're seeing supporters of the various political parties having already taken their seats. This debate due to get underway very, very, very shortly. And just to my left over here, we're seeing all of the various members of the political parties that have come here for the debate today. Thabo.
Having gone to the ground, Nicholas, and gotten a sense of what the issues are, I hear you're highlighting in your package that certainly homelessness and poverty are still pretty much in the city. So the question of housing will be top of mind for many of the voters who are going to the polls. What's the context of the housing inadequacy in the city of Johannesburg, currently sitting at a backlog of over 300,000?
Well, this is the thing, Thabo. I mean, you can go to a suburb, you can go to a township, you can go to an area in the inner city, and housing remains a monumental problem. In the inner city itself, I mean, you've got hijacked buildings that have been taken over by unscrupulous, I wouldn't even call them landlords, people to be claiming to own the building and then taking advantage of people that really have no other place to stay, and those buildings having absolutely no services whatsoever, no running water, no electricity, and really just being absolute dens of iniquity and really a place for the desperate and the drug-addled. And indeed, as well as I mentioned earlier, you go to any suburb in Johannesburg, and you're finding this pervasive problem of people left with no choice but to beg at robots just to survive. So, I mean, housing is integral to providing not only a safe place to stay for all residents and the like, but indeed also central to any government's problems in terms of creating a better life for all. The ANC likes to trumpet that it has created a better life for all people since 1994, but what has happened in local government since 2016 in Johannesburg? It's not only been the ANC that's been in charge of a coalition government, it's also been the DA. And you heard the analyst there, Professor Stephen Friedman, saying that, you know, by and large, what has actually changed in the past 5 years here in Johannesburg? Thabo.
84 buildings, as you mentioned, that DA-led coalition were awarded to developers across the inner city in a hope to at least develop about 6,000 affordable housing units. Was that whole entire project abandoned with Mashaba leaving the Democratic Alliance?
Well, it's not necessarily that it was abandoned, but there wasn't a political champion for it anymore. I mean, that's part of the campaign that Mashab has been putting on the table in terms of trumpeting his successes as Joburg mayor, trying to indicate that he was, during his time in office, able to regain control of some hijacked buildings, expropriate them within the law, take ownership of them as the city and redevelop them as low-cost housing for students and indeed indigent people as well. Those grand plans where very many buildings that were owned by the city in Johannesburg and indeed stretches of land as well were offered up to the private sector. I mean, that started, but before it really came to fruition, Thabo, it was a case of Herman Mashaba not being able to finish his job. And there was also not necessarily the appetite that was needed to ensure that all of those pieces of property that were put up for private development were actually taken up. So it's not as if the project wasn't started, but without the political champion in office to actually get it going, it hasn't been brought to fruition. And we've seen the successive governments of the ANC-led councils, not only Makubo, Matongo, but indeed now Murane, not taking up this baton and following through with the plans that were initially launched by Herman Mashaba. It's a problem with local politics and indeed national politics as well. It seems a bit of anathema to take up the baton of your opponent and follow through on even a successful policy, Thabo.
All right, Nicholas Bauer, much appreciated. He stays on with us. He's live for us at the council chambers tonight. We also have Malungelo Boy standing by to give us a sense, of course, of what the issues are that people want to raise as they're filling up the room. We are in conversation tonight with the ANC's Regional Secretary, Dara Morero, DA Mayoral candidate, Dr. Mpopalazi, IFP, Gauteng Secretary, Alcon Gobese, Al-Jamaa Mayoral candidate, Tapelo Ahmed. We've got Forum for Service Delivery spokesperson Tonik Mangidi, as well as Action SA's National Director of Operations Funzi Ngobeni, and as well as Franz Sitlalechi from the EFF. Tonight, let's hear your views. If you live in the city, what are the issues that are top of mind for you? 072-110-5584 or tweet us at Newzroom 405. Back in a moment. Malu. Hey, Malu. Malungelo. Malu. What do you want to talk about, Malu?
He finished me that thing of Cyril didn't promise people of Alex 1 million houses.
That was a
Did you see that
disaster.
one? Cyril didn't promise people 1 million houses.
That was a disaster.
Before
With JJ Tawan.
With JJ Tawan. And then Mbalula denies it. And then they played the footage of Cyril saying he didn't have rally in Alex. Where are the where are the million houses?
Yeah.
Then this lady responds that the only thing that's left is it's a piece of Atulinyalo.
Is that?
Some lady, because there's nothing that they've been promised by the NC that they haven't been promised.
Is it? I think bafunele nami lapha endlini.
I think this will be around 8:00.
8 o'clock. And I never really.
The voice of the electorate continues tonight here on Newzroom Afrika, channel 405, with our town hall happening live today at the council chambers in the city of Johannesburg. We have for us there on the ground tonight our reporters Malungelo Boy as well as Nicholas Bauer. And we have, of course, joining us tonight, ANC's Regional Secretary Dada Morero, DA mayoral candidate Dr. Mpho Phalatse, IFP Gauteng Secretary Alko Ngobese, and Al Jamar mayoral candidate Tapelo Ahmed, and Forum for Service Delivery spokesperson Tonik Manglidi. Action SA's National Director of Operations Funzi Ngobeni, and Franz Sitlachile of the EFF. We are, of course, taking your thoughts tonight as well live, 072-110-5584. Otherwise, you can tweet us tonight at Newzroom 405. Big promises being made on this lead up to the November 1st government local elections. Nicholas, one of the issues that are going to be key, of course, is the question of jobs that would need to be created. At some point, the ANC promising 150,000 jobs on their first day in office. Any plan as to how exactly they're going to be creating so many jobs?
Taba, I have to be honest with you. I mean, this is just an indication for me that it's all pie in the sky with no proper understanding of exactly how we are going to actually see those jobs be created. Even those that are lucky enough to have jobs in the city of Johannesburg have said that the economy isn't what it was just 5 years ago. And of course, an aspect of that has to be the COVID-19 pandemic, but indeed also there's been a slackening off of economic activity in the city of gold for quite some time now. And I mean, it's just got to do with the economic malaise that South Africa is facing. You know, bottom line is South Africa is really not growing fast enough if we want to absorb the kinds of unemployed people that are currently searching for work and see the economy grow so that it can cater to all of its people. But I mean, when you look at it from a Johannesburg perspective, it's really got to do with the fact that if Johannesburg works, there's a greater chance that there'll be a positive knock-on effect for the rest of the South African economy, not only here in Gauteng, but the rest of the country as well. And that's certainly based on the analysts and economists that I've spoken to. Johannesburg may not be the capital, administrative or legislative, but it is definitely the economic capital of South Africa, and for a very long time was seen as not only the economic powerhouse of this country, but indeed the continent as well. It's not necessarily seen that way anymore. And well, these politicians that are gathered here today, and indeed anybody else on the campaign trail, can make the promises of more jobs, more economic activity. But what is the nitty-gritty of that really? And how will that be turned into action, Thabo? Hopefully we'll get answers to those questions during the course of this evening.
And of course, the other questions that decade long, billing crisis. What's interesting about that is that Funzi Ngobeni, who was MMC for Finance at the time, had promised really to deal with this issue of the billing crisis. He's now wearing a different color shirt. I wonder what his thoughts would be, particularly on that billing crisis. But it continues. I mean, one would say the system is still in bad shape, pretty much.
Oh, indeed. I mean, there's been no conclusive end or solution brought to the long-standing Joburg billing crisis here in the metro. And I've spoken to a number of not only private rates and taxes payers who have for a very, very long time had problems with their municipal services, either water or electricity's bill. A lot of them trying to at least go off the grid, and indeed businesses as well. I know of one company in particular that was being charged for a meter that was long disconnected after he actually got off the grid. So, but not by a long stretch of their imagination is this Joburg billing crisis being dealt with, Thabo. And I mean, there's all sorts of promises, one being made by the Patriotic Alliance, for instance, on the campaign trail, that all municipal bills, wherever they're going to govern, are going to be brought back to zero. Well, Thabo, I could see that possibly working here in Johannesburg, because the fact of the matter is that where do you actually stand with a bill if you've been consistently paying, or at least paying what you would think is a fair amount, even though you're getting bills of 70, 80,000 rand just for a single month. So certainly that is something very, very, very important that these candidates will be looking at to try and answer during the course of this evening. Thabo.
All right, Nicholas, I wonder if some of your guests are ready there, and if you could possibly take a walk down to some of the political representatives there to get a sense from them each what their vision for the city really is to try and create a better functioning city, before we get in earnest into this conversation.
Well, let's try and see if we can engage with a couple of those candidates now. Let's hope the cameras follow us here as we make our way to the candidates' desk to try and get an indication of exactly how they're feeling ahead of this town hall debate, and in a nutshell what their offering is to the people of Johannesburg should they be voted into power. Maybe let's start just at the end over here. We've got the ANC Representative Dada. Let's see whether the camera is following us here. Good evening, everybody. It's indeed, I think so. Just to get a sort of indication of where you guys are standing, maybe an opening remark, if we could get from you, Dada. I mean, what does... well, we're currently live, actually, at the moment. So we're wondering if it's possible for you to just give an opening remark of 30 seconds to a minute about what the ANC is hoping to bring to the municipality of Johannesburg should they be voted into power.
Oh, thank you very much, and hello to your viewers. Well, the ANC intends to bring more vigor or bring more acceleration into what we've been doing already, which is really provision of services to our communities. Secondly, transformation of the city of Johannesburg to what we believe should be a world-class African city, in a sense that we intend to invest quite heavily in infrastructure development, believing that investing in infrastructure development will lead, of course, to economic activity, economic recovery, and we should be able to change the face of the city of Johannesburg.
Well, let's hear from, now that we've heard from the incumbent, let's try and hear from the DA mayoral candidate here in Johannesburg, in Populati. I mean, what's the DA's offering for the people of Johannesburg this local government election?
Well, you know, we're dealing with a city that's broken, that was neglected for 22 years by the ANC and government. We came in 2016, we started undoing a lot of that damage, but we were only in government for 3 years. A lot of regression has happened since then. The past 2 years has seen a breakdown of service delivery. People in the city, whether it's residents, business, they're all asking for the same thing, a sense of normality to be brought back to Johannesburg, a sense of functionality. You know, just an assurance of basic service delivery, water, electricity, roads, clean streets, proper sanitation, transport, safety, and that is our priority as a Democratic Alliance. Our 7-pillar manifesto starts with basic service delivery. We're going to go back to basics and give back to residents a functional city so that we can all start building it and we can all start working towards maintaining our status as the economic hub of the country and the continent.
There's DA mayoral candidate Impopolati giving her opening remarks there. Now falling to the Economic Freedom Fighters, was the third biggest placed party in the Johannesburg City Council. So Vuyile, what does the EFF have to offer this local government election for the people of Joburg?
Good evening to all the viewers and residents of the city of Johannesburg. Well, I mean, the EFF is not complex, it's simple. We're going to first capacitate the city, ensure that the city has the abilities and the capabilities of providing the basic services that our peoples require, fundamentally, which is it's around jobs. I mean, we are the economic freedom fighters, provide our people jobs, then move on to basic services. And that's it on the EFF side. There's nothing complex, doesn't need much, it just needs the will that only an organization like the EFF has.
Well, thank you very much there. Then let's move to the new kids on the block. Fuzile Ngubeni, what is Action SA's offering? They're saying bring back Mashaba as mayor, but what does that mean in terms of actual governance? What's Action SA going to bring to Johannesburg should you be voted into power?
Yeah, thank you, Nicholas, and good evening to the viewers and residents of Johannesburg. Look, what we are saying, Nicholas, is that our country is in a mess. Our country is in a mess. Everything is broken. From a small dorpy somewhere in Northwest, in the Free State, to a metro like City of Johannesburg, the current government has actually destroyed everything. And they are actually, in some cases, in the process of destroying. And we have had this sentiment not only from when we were busy doing our manifesto, engaging with the public, but also through our people's dialogue. People are heartful, and they are saying they are tired of the ANC. And we are saying to them, look, here's Action SA. We want to work with them to fix South Africa. And to fix South Africa, we have to start with local government and municipalities. Of course, much of these issues relate to national government. We'll get there in 2024. But for now, we want to work with them to fix the local government in all the municipalities that we are contesting. And one of the things that we are looking at, besides the rule of law being one of the cornerstones of our manifesto, we're also talking about customer-centric environment that we want to create. We want to create a business-friendly environment in the city of Johannesburg so we can be able to attract investment and many other things that are in our manifesto. So we are saying to South Africans, join hands with us. On the 1st of November, let's go out and fix South Africa.
Well, that's Action SA's Fuzile Ngubeni chatting to us about what they may well offer the city of Johannesburg should they be voted into power. A quick word or so from the not the Economic Freedom Fighters, the Inkatha Freedom Party. Baba, what would you hope that the IFP can offer should you be voted into power here in Johannesburg after the local government elections? What's on your agenda as the IFP?
Well, the IFP is very clear. We are offering people of the city of Johannesburg and Gauteng the clean governance, a corrupt-free council, where the money that is allocated to go out and do projects will do just that. It will not go to individuals to enrich themselves. IFP is very strict when it comes to corruption. We don't tolerate corruption at all. We would ensure that we work for the people, not for ourselves. We are the servants of the people. We work for the people out there. The community knows that our track record speaks for itself. Where there's IFP, there's stability, as we can see in the city of Johannesburg and Ekurhuleni and Mogale City, there's stability. Where there's IFP, there's service delivery. Where there's IFP, you will also see that there is accountability. So that's what the IFP is offering.
All right, so we've heard from the ANC, the DA, the Economic Freedom Fighters, the Action SA, and indeed IFP. My colleague Malungule Boy is going to be taking up the remaining candidates, the mayoral candidate for Al Jamar and indeed the representative for Forum for Service Delivery. For now, back to you in studio, Thabo.
Right, Nicholas Bauer, appreciate that. Indeed, Malungelo Boy standing by. In a moment, he will be speaking and getting a sense from Al Jamar what they have as a plan for their vision for the city. And of course, we'll also be taking Forum for Service Delivery there, who are also vying for a seat, or at least that mayoral chain in the city. Our town hall conversation continues on Newzroom Afrika, channel 405. In a moment, stay with us. You can never get the debate going. Those people are not going to hear what is being said. Yeah, I can debate with Nicholas. The only other thing that they need to do is take out their earpieces and put them on the guests, and that's what we'll do. That's the only thing we can do, because this joint, it's not going to work. Malebu must call it quits. He must call dibs on this. Let's go to a bulletin. It's not going to work. We're just not going to work. Malu, hi. Good evening. Malu?
Hi, Thabo. You a bit soft in my ear, but it's
there
fine.
you are. Now I can hear you. Great.
Hi, Thabo. I can hear you.
What do you want to talk about? What are you talking about? Oh, you're going straight to the panelists. Okay. Great.
Okay, so... Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay, cool.
The voice of the electorate tonight on Newzroom Afrika, channel 405. Our town hall conversation continuing, of course. We've got our panel sitting at the council chambers in the city of Johannesburg, as well as our reporters there, Nicholas Bauer, as well as Malungelo Boy. Let's go to Malungelo Boy now to hear from Al Jamar, as well as the Forum for Service Delivery. What is their vision for the city, Malu?
Hi there, Thabo. You're right. In fact, it's quite interesting that decisions that are affecting at least 6 million residents of Johannesburg are actually being taken where we are. About, there's mayoral candidates that are hoping really to lead the city of Johannesburg. I want to bring in Al Jamar. Hi there, Tapelo. How are you doing tonight?
Good, thanks, Malungelo. Good evening to you and good evening to the viewers.
Thank you so much. So what are you offering the people of Johannesburg? There's 6 million people that live in this city. What are you promising them?
Basically, let me start by demystifying. Let's say we are a political platform for all communities, right? We are offering access to opportunities. We are offering access to opportunities. We are tipping the scale and create access to opportunities, right? We are tipping the scale and create that access. And we are also not here to promise, but we are here to commit, in a sense that we are an alternative voice to improve service delivery. We are a voice to accountability. And then we are an alternative voice of the economic recovery in the city of Johannesburg. And we are also prioritizing in housing and adequate human settlement. We also want to improve in the health sector, particularly since we are hit by the pandemic. all over the world. We need to enhance our hospitals, or rather clinics, because it's our competency within the city. How do we recover in terms of the economy? We want to create programs which are community-based. We call them community-based recovery programs. We bring together the co-ops, cooperatives, SMMEs, and we are promoting business chambers in all the locations, in all the townships. And we also, through partnerships, stakeholders, we believe as a party that stakeholder engagement is a core of clean governance.
For clean governance, that's what Al-Jamaa is saying. I want to bring in the Forum for Service Delivery. Sir, good evening. Sir, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. It's Tonic Mangindi, right? All right. So you coming to the city of Johannesburg, you want to contest in this city. What are you telling the 6 million people that live in the city?
Thank you very much for the opportunity, Malungelo. The 6 million you are referring to does not have proper housing in Johannesburg. They are squatted and they're living on top of each other. If you go to Alexander Township, as Forum for Service Delivery, we are saying the 6 million deserve better. They have been given politics for the past 27 years, no service delivery. So our name, the name says a lot. We are Forum for Service Delivery. We are 80% service delivery driven, and we are only doing 20% of politics. We are saying Kenako, time is over. It's time to liberate the people of Johannesburg and give them what rightfully belongs to them.
All right, thanks. Then from almost all the political parties that are represented here tonight in this town hall debate, later on, I suppose, we'll then hear from the members of the audience that have joined us tonight for this town hall elections debate. It's interesting. You know, all these political parties are all making promising us, the residents of Johannesburg, that they can do better, they can solve our problems. The question is, do we believe them? It's back to you.
Malungelo, boy, I appreciate that live for us there at the chambers tonight. That's where this town hall conversation is taking place. Now, currently, Nicholas Bauer there, if you can make your way to the DA as well as the ANC's mayoral candidates, because the last 5 years have seen a coalition administration between those two particular parties. And the question is really simple. Is there a solution on the horizon for the housing tensions in Alexandra? What are the possibilities? What would be the possibility for them to be able to address the scale of demand? It seems that there is a huge need, and that need continues to grow. However, the supply of the housing seemingly not adequate enough to address that, and it keeps becoming a shifting goalpost. What are the varying ideas that they have on that particular question? Nicholas?
Well, let's try and find out directly from the two candidates that are here from the ANC and the DA. We've got a question in from a viewer that's been read to me by Thabo in my ear here, and mainly directed at the ANC and DA because you were part of party-led coalitions. Now currently there's a ANC-led coalition in the Johannesburg City Council. Previously there was a DA-led coalition. And the big issue of housing, particularly in places like Alexandra, is coming through as a question now. How exactly is the ANC going to deal with housing moving forward in the city of Johannesburg? There's been a number of promises made to increase the number of housing units that are available to not only indigent Joburgers, but indeed the poor and middle class as well. What are the ANC's plans for housing in the Johannesburg City Council?
Well, the ANC has always committed itself to the delivery of houses, and indeed we have done so. However, we should accept that there are challenges as it relates to provision of housing, so that you need to understand that you need so much resources and you only have this much resources to try and deliver on that promise. And part of what we want to do is to then bring about innovation in how you're going to deliver houses. One, you'd look at how do you make land available so that you can give land to people and the people can then begin a process to build for themselves. Two, you'd want to look at backyard programs as to how you can intervene through backyard dwellings within the township so that that assists you in responding to the housing backlog and the housing challenge, because you cannot have a one-fix-all type of a solution, especially in a metropolitan city as Johannesburg, where you are bound to receive at least 10,000 people every month into the city of Johannesburg. So the challenges of housing are bigger. So part of what you'll try to do is high-density buildings that we have done already in Riverside, just next to Fourways, where we are responding to the challenges of housing. In the Deep South, we're looking at solutions of making land available so that people can settle there and build for themselves. So there's quite a number of innovative ideas that we have to bring in place for you to be able to respond to the housing challenge. It's not something that you could say you've got billions and billions to respond to it. We've got so much resources, and within those resources, we have to try and deliver on the promise of houses.
Let's try and hear from the DA mayoral candidate on this. I mean, the DA-led government by Herman Mashaba made a great deal of noise about the repurposing of formerly hijacked buildings to create units for the poor and indigent to stay in. Amidst all these promises of housing in Johannesburg, in townships, in suburbs, in high-density areas, will the DA look at continuing something like that, or what is the DA's plans in the city of Johannesburg for housing?
Well, when we were in government between 2016 and 2019, the housing backlog that we uncovered was around 300,000 in the city of Johannesburg alone. We simply did not have the money to provide that number of houses, and I think it's time we became honest with our residents on what we can and cannot deliver as government. But this is worrying because it signals the huge unemployment, that's increasing the reliance on government for provision of services, including housing. There are different types of constituents, and we need to approach it that way. Yes, we'll always have people who require housing from government, and for those we want to give different options. For instance, giving service stands. So a stand with water, electricity, with a toilet, and a voucher, which you can use to buy building equipment, you can use to pay laborers to help you build. That's one option. Another option is to do low rentals, rent to buy options in mixed use and mixed income developments. You talked about the buildings in the inner city, particularly that were hijacked. We identified 500 buildings at the time, and we managed to give over 154 in the 3 years that we were in government, and that is a program that we will be continuing. We will partner with the city improvement districts in all the CBDs of the area, not just the Joburg CBD, because there's been a concern that there's been an overemphasis on the Joburg inner city over other nodes urban nodes in the city, for instance, the Randburg, the Roodepoort, which could also be economic hubs in their own right and provide much needed employment and economic opportunities for people in those areas. And so our focus this time around will be on all the inner city nodes, and all the CBDs rather, and we will work with our SIDs to revitalize all of them.
Well, we've heard there from the incumbent ANC and indeed the DA mayoral candidates, their plans for housing in the inner city. We're going to hand back to you now, Thabo, for an ad break and then hear from our other candidates.
That's Nicholas Bauer there for us live at the council chambers. That's where that conversation is taking place. When we come back, we take it further. We'll hear more of the plans from Action SA around housing and whether they are resorting to the old plans of Herman Mashaba. But most importantly, let's hear their plans as well on how to fight crime in the city. Currently, much of it done through surveillance cameras and beefing up the metro police. That's what the ANC's later mayor candidate did coming into the office, saying they will be putting more of those metros and doing what is called a ward-based approach. We'll get more on that when we continue next. Do stay with us. Right, we're back with you tonight. You're live here on Newzroom Afrika, channel 405, our town hall conversation happening at the council chambers in the city of Johannesburg. Before the break, we're asking the question, how can the problem of housing inadequacy be resolved in the city? Agreement somewhat today from the DA as well as the ANC that there are only so many resources they have available to them, and therefore there is a level and a degree, Nicholas, of honesty that they need to actually tell the voters that we have limited resources, and the ANC's big idea, of course, is the releasing of the land parcels for people to build for themselves, but also to improve the situation with the back house dwellings. What's the big idea from the EFF? I'm sure it has got to do with land.
Well, let's hear from the remaining political parties that we haven't yet had a chance to hear from when it comes to housing. Those initial answers from the ANC and the DA, there's a certain similarity there about giving serviced land that residents of the city can then build on. Let's hear what the Economic Freedom Fighters have to say, currently the third biggest party in the city. Savile, what will the Economic Freedom Fighters do to try and solve the housing backlog in the city, should you be given a chance to run it?
Thank you. The EFF, the crowd is making a noise. The EFF is clear about land reform at a local level, right? So basically the first thing that we're going to do, we have to conduct a land audit. I mean, right now the city does not even know how many buildings have been hijacked. It doesn't even know how much land is unoccupied, so what some of the land is even used for. So the first thing that the EFF is going to do is that the EFF is going to conduct a land audit, and then from that land audit we're then going to redistribute the land accordingly to our people, build houses for them, and even in those building of houses, even when we're providing service to them, we're going to include them at every level. This is why the EFF believes in building state capacity and the eradication of the tender process, right? Because
so then who's going to build those houses for them?
The city will build those houses. You understand? So that is the plan of the Economic Freedom Fighters when it comes to the land question. Like, I don't think it's complex. Like I said to you in the beginning, all these things need is the political will and the courage to take on the issues that our people are facing.
Well, there we go from the Economic Freedom Fighters. It's about doing a thorough land and property audit in the city of Johannesburg and then building capacity within the municipal council itself to start building houses for the people that need it. Let's hear from Action SA. Are we going to see a continuation of Herman Mashaba's plan that, well, it was a DA-led government plan that he implemented as mayor, repurposing buildings indeed in the inner city Johannesburg, hijacked buildings, and repurposing them for low-cost housing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I must say that we are disappointed that the ANC has abandoned that program. Out of the 154 buildings that we released when Mr. Herman Mashaba was the mayor, very few of them have been actually developed. I mean, most of these buildings, the processes were done, and these buildings were already handed over to the developers. Why they are still not developed up to today, it's a mystery. But, Nicholas, I need to point out that Johannesburg still has a problem of apartheid spatial planning. Most of our people are still getting houses or being built houses at the periphery of the city. And having to travel so many distances, spending so much money to come to the city of Johannesburg. So that plan of taking over the buildings in the inner city and repurpose them will be there. But we also want to make it clear, Nicholas, that housing obviously is a competency of national and provincial government. Over the years, we are seeing national government reducing the grants that are given to the cities. During our term, those grants declined in a big way. But we continued to build houses under those difficult circumstances. That is why we are saying when we take over government in 2024 at the national level, we want to relook into these RDP policies. RDP to us is unsustainable. That is why we have so much backlog, because building houses for over 27 years, it has been only because politicians are gaining out of it and entrepreneurs are gaining out of it. But the number of people that are getting houses is very small. That is why we have over 300,000 backlog of housing in the city of Johannesburg. So the RDP policy, it's outdated. It needs to be re-looked at. We need money to be used, in making sure that our people come and live in the inner cities and being able to offer them free accommodation in those areas. So that's our position as Action SA.
Well, there we hear from Action SA, trying to provide an affordable alternative for residents of the city of Johannesburg. Malu, let's hear from you and the candidates that are here this evening on the other side of the podium.
Nick. In fact, Nick, the housing is one of the major issues that's facing people of Johannesburg, but also facing South Africans, because we know the backlog nationwide really stands at around, 3 to 4 million. We've got the IFP now that's going to tell us exactly how would they deal with the issue of housing here in the city of Johannesburg. Sir.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. Housing currently is under
your portfolio?
Under our portfolio, MMC Mabaso is running it on behalf of the IFP. In the last 2 years, we have already issued more than 7,000 title deeds to the communities. Secondly, we need to ensure that when we do our planning, we build houses not far away from the job opportunities. People live 100 kilometers away from where they work, and they spend half of their salary on transport.
Okay.
Ensure that all the buildings in the inner city that have been hijacked, we reclaim back those buildings so that we can make sure that we give it to our people as affordable accommodation. So those are the solutions to our housing backlog. But also we need to ensure that the waiting list is transparent. Everybody must know where I am in order to stop all this corruption that is taking place in the housing backlog.
Okay. The issue of housing backlog and the issue of the waiting list and, making it transparent to members of the community is one of the things that the IFP says it's actually quite important. Thabo, it's over to you for a commercial break. After that, though, we'll still have Al Jamaa and also Forum for Service Delivery.
Malungelo Boy there live for us tonight at the council chambers. We'll get back to them in a moment. The excess of need for housing over the supply of housing, big question. And those who need houses actually are unable to afford the houses. What are the parties going to come up with as an innovation which we have not seen in the last 27 years to address this question of housing? When we continue next, stay with us. You're live with us tonight here on Newzroom Afrika, channel 405, and our town hall happening live at the council chambers tonight. Let's take you back to Malungelo Boy, who is standing by with members of Al Jamaa, as well as the Forum for Service Delivery, as well as the Inkatha Freedom Party. And they're talking, of course, how to address and resolve issues of housing inadequacy. Malu, before you were, of course, asking the question to the IFP, who are currently in charge of that portfolio. It would be interesting to me to get a sense from them, what do they think around the question of excess of the needs? There's too much need versus the supply that they are currently giving to the people. I mean, they speak of 6,000 stands, maybe 4,000 housing units, when in actual fact they are having a backlog of over 300,000. Do they feel that they will ever be able to catch up with that backlog?
Well, we'll ask them that question, Thabo, shortly, but I think we've heard from about 5 political parties here that are part of this debate. I do want us to bring in Al Jamaa, Mr. Ahmed, so that he can essentially tell us about how then would they address the issue of housing in the city of Johannesburg, the backlog everybody has been talking about here. How would you address it?
Thank you very much, Malungelo. Ahmad, A-M-A-D. That's my name. So it's an interesting question. Yeah. As I alluded to say, we are tipping the scale to create access to opportunities, not promises. We are in the coalition government in the city of Johannesburg as Al Jamaa. I'm an MMC responsible for development planning in the city of Johannesburg. So we are only 9 months in the office. Therefore, we have demonstrated our ability to deliver to the residents of Johannesburg. One major project that we've managed to achieve is the parcels of land that belongs to the city. Yeah. We've managed to approve a report to give away that land to the residents of Johannesburg, which is the Southern Farm mega project. It's about 4,020 hectares. It's in the south of Johannesburg, which is going to enable the city to ease the burden of that backlog. There was controversy though surrounding that particular... There was controversy in 2017, 2018 through the previous government. We came through, there was a pushback. We pushed because we put the residents first. That's our interpretation of our manifesto. Yeah. We pushed in 9 months. We've managed to achieve that. We've also achieved a Soweto strategic area framework, which seeks to develop Soweto through partnerships. It is purely funded by the UK government to enhance the cosmetic beauty of Soweto. So essentially, you're saying that part of solving the housing issues here in Johannesburg also means that you've got to have partnership with others. Is that what you're saying? 100%. Hence why I said stakeholder engagement. It's a core to good governance. So you need to have partnerships. You need to create partnerships. You can't highly depend on government coffers. You need to engage active citizens. Yeah. You need to engage civil society. You need to engage corporate sector from the corporate social investment. They need to give back because we are supporting their businesses. They need to give back and assist the government as well on enhancing, spearheading the agenda to service our people. We've managed to also... quick. Oh, okay, just a quick one. We've expanded the SDF, which is a special development framework that seeks to readdress the special injustices of the past. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. That's Al Jamaa. Sir, they've got a lot to say. I'm wondering what you're going to say when it comes to dealing with the issues of housing in the city of Johannesburg. Quickly.
It is very simple, Malungelo. Very simple. Okay. You take the services to the people where they are. For example... Are you saying that throughout they've failed to take the service to where the people are? 100%, okay. 100%. Diepsloot is still the same, Alexander is still the same for the past 27 years. So as from for service delivery, what we are saying is we are going to issue a housing voucher. So how it's going to happen is the residents of Diepsloot, for example, from where they are, they will be given a voucher of a minimum of 200,000 that they will be utilizing to make sure that they build a house where they are currently residing. Where will the money come from? There's a lot of money in government. The money is going towards corruption. There is a lot of money in the City of Johannesburg. City of Johannesburg is the economic hub of Africa. There is a lot of money here. We are being told rubbish that there is no money. It's how the budget get allocated. They are not prioritizing the citizens of Johannesburg. They prioritizing other things which are not more important. As Forum for Service Delivery, the issue of housing, we take it very much serious. It's our priority. Immediately we kick inside the government after the 1st of November, Malungelo. The people of Alexander, the people of Diepsloot are going to receive the vouchers where they will be able to build houses where they stay.
Interesting. Nick, the Forum for Service Delivery is talking about housing vouchers. I've never heard of it before. This is the first time I'm hearing it from them. And they're saying that if they get to office here in Johannesburg, people who are battling to have houses, they'll actually be given those so that they can be able to build themselves their own houses.
Interesting differing approaches to housing and indeed the backlog that the people of Johannesburg are facing. But we've had a chance to hear from the candidates this evening thus far, their plans overall, should they be in the mayor's office after the 1st of November, and also indeed their approach to housing. Let's try and hear from a couple of the residents now of the City of Johannesburg. Behind me here is Nhlanhla Lux. He's quite a prominent Soweto resident, certainly came to the fore during the recent July unrest. And I mean, based on what you've heard thus far, Mr. Lux, what's your take on these potential solutions to the City of Johannesburg and indeed, you know, in the main to the township of Soweto?
I'm just going to speak a little bit loud because we're having technical problems in the room. So I'm hoping that my peers can listen so we can have a better interactive conversation together. But look, speaking from a point of view of someone from Soweto who's on the ground every day, not sometimes, every day, what the politicians are saying is very far-fetched from reality. Let me tell you, in Soweto, the biggest social fight is that all the houses, majority of the houses in Soweto are still without title deeds. The owners, the real owners of those houses are gone. Young people are now the workforce of Soweto. We kill each other every day for those family houses. We don't have title deeds. And we're addressing things that are very far-fetched. We're addressing houses that are not yet there and we should make sure that we come with solutions. Politicians must come with solutions that are plugged in. You must go to people and make informed decisions, not political decisions. Because on the ground, you don't see politicians. I can make an example because your intro was Maponya Mall. Where were the politicians to defend the economy of the township when it was penning? So do you understand that we need leaders that are honest? We need leaders that are interactive and that are accessible. You know, if you're saying to Soweto that you will be without electricity for 4 years, be honest. Our people are very patient. Very, very patient. This government here would not be a working government. We would have rebelled against this government. But our people are patient. We want success out of this country. So we're getting defeated daily because of the lies and just the convenient talk. Because Newzroom is live, we must just be convenient and diplomatic. So that thing must be a thing of the past.
So are you basically saying you'd rather be hit with the hard truths as opposed to an electoral lie or electoral gimmicks that get people elected?
Yes, I'm saying let's be real with each other. You know, people have forgotten something, especially about, I don't want to be racial, but black people. We are very loving people and very caring people and very patient people. Otherwise, we wouldn't have tolerated the nonsense for so many years. If you look at Soweto alone, and I ask you, what has government actually achieved from an infrastructure development point of view in Soweto from 1994 to today? You can't easily think and give me an answer. You will say Maponya Mall wasn't there, Chablani Mall wasn't there. Maponya Mall isn't Tate Maponya. Chablani Mall isn't Tate Nkuna. That's private investment. What has government done for us in Soweto? As we speak, Soweto, if you move away private investment, Soweto is still the same as 1994. And another thing, in Soweto, the population count is wrong. It's actually a lie. I think they know the truth, but they're lying. Because in Soweto, we are also infiltrated by foreign immigrants that are living amongst us. And I don't have a problem with that. We need an amicable solution to solve that. But when you say the population of Soweto is 2 million, and Middlelands alone has 1 million people, what are you saying?
Very, very tough words there from Nhlanhla Lux, a concerned Soweto resident. Thabo, I think we'll maybe have to go back to Malu to get an indication from our candidates there, if there's any sort of response to the words that Nhlanhla Lux has just been saying. Indeed, very, very tough talk about the situation, the real situation that Soweto finds itself in, and asking for hard truths as opposed to electoral gimmicks there, Malu.
Nick, in fact, I want to bring in the Inkatha Freedom Party. You've heard Nhlanhla Lux actually saying that some of what is being said here is just you being political. Explain that to him.
No. I think it's right. It's somehow, you know, people of South Africa are very, very patient. Yeah. You must tell them exactly what's going to happen. Don't try and, you know, and just lie so that you can just get them out of your way. During the IDP process, that's when all the projects of each ward is allocated. The project is allocated, but it must have a time frame. You know, there are people in Soweto who've been, Ward 38, they've been without electricity for the last 6 months. Ward 16, Mapetla, there are people who've been without electricity for the... So it is true that as politicians, we should not just, because we want votes, so we can just tell people anything that we think it's sweet talk. We need to be realistic and ensure that whatever we say here is going to be implemented.
All right. So that's what the Inkatha Freedom Party is saying, that whatever is being said here, Thabo, must be implemented when these parties get into power. I do want to bring in, I want to hear from the ANC and the DA, considering the fact that, you know, they've run this city. What do you have to say to what Nhlanhla Lux was saying?
No, well, it's interesting that Nhlanhla's comments, and one of the things he says, nothing has happened since 1994. And I'm not sure, because I'm born and bred in Soweto myself. And I saw the development of road construction and stormwater construction in Soweto. Where I grew up, there was no streets. When Masondo came into office, one of the first things was to tar the entire Soweto. Yeah. Now, if you say there's no infrastructure development, then there's a problem with your analysis, because you don't see what's happening in front of you. Right in Pimville, where he stays, we tarred the entire Pimville. Secondly, he suggests that politicians are not on the ground. In all the 41 wards in Soweto, we've got councillors of the ANC who are on the ground every day responding to challenges that communities are faced with. Yeah. He says that there were no politicians when the problem of looting happened. He then claims that where were politicians when the malls were attacked. By the way, where he was in Maponya Mall, our comrades were there, members of the ANC, and I can give him names because you'd know them. Some of them belongs to an organization called Dudula, which he knows very well about it. So it is important that when we make statements, we are informed, otherwise we'll mislead the people and communities. We have done so much in as far as infrastructure development in Soweto. When I grew up, there was no...
But are you satisfied, though, with the level of service delivery in Soweto? Are you satisfied with the level of service delivery in Soweto?
Look, there will be gaps, there will be challenges there and there, but in the main, you do have water supply in Soweto, you do have refuse removal happening in Soweto, you have parks that are continuously being looked after and upgraded. Yes, there are challenges there and there. So generally, there's still more that we need to do, and we are committed as the ANC government to ensure that we continue to develop our communities.
All right. Dr. Palate, I want you to respond really to what Nhlanhla Lux was saying.
Well, you know, I've spent a lot of time in Soweto on my campaign trail. And one of the biggest challenges with Soweto is, one, there's been an influx of backyard dwellers. Now, with that, you're increasing your population. As you increase your population, ideally what should then happen is you should be increasing your supply of services like water and electricity. You should be maintaining your infrastructure, but you should be upgrading your infrastructure and you should be investing in future growth. And that has not happened in Soweto. And that's why we've got these constant outages and all these challenges. But we also have an Eskom supply issue in Soweto, where there's areas that have been without electricity for up to 3 years. But that was also because of a lie, that was sold to the people of Soweto that they can continue consuming electricity without paying for it. It's not sustainable, and now the chickens have come to roost, and Eskom is now disconnecting the people of Soweto, and that's the issue. And that's why, as the Democratic Alliance, we're saying to the people of Soweto, we need to determine who cannot pay, and the ones who can pay must pay for services, but we want city power to take over, and that's another topic altogether.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Palata. All right, Thabo, we've got to hand back to you for a quick commercial break.
Right, Malungelo Boy, they're live for us with that conversation. Of course, Tantalak's raising some issues that the ANC as well as the Democratic Alliance are responding to around the solutions, whether they are, of course, fit for purpose and directly meet the needs of the people on the ground. When we come back, the issues that the residents want to raise tonight here on our Town Hall conversation. Stay with us. Welcome back. The voice of the electorate. The conversation continues tonight. And, of course, we are live for you at the council chambers. That is where our reporters, Malungelo Boy, as well as Nicholas Bauer, are standing by, of course, to get the voices now of the residents. And the ANC adamant and particularly emphasizing the fact that, well, since 1994, a lot has been done. Dara Morero saying, for example, the whole of Soweto has been tarred. As far as infrastructure is concerned, a lot has been done as far as that infrastructure is concerned. This, of course, as one of the very prominent residents there, and Tantalax raises the issue that except for private sector investment, they've not seen a lot coming from government as far as improving that particular township in the southwest of Johannesburg. Let's get back to you now, Nicholas, and hear more what the residents want to raise tonight with our panel.
Well, we thought it might be now an opportune time to have the political party supporters that are gathered here today not ask a question of their candidate that's up on the podium there, but indeed perhaps a question to another candidate that is representing a different political party. We've got a councillor here for the Democratic Alliance, Annette Deppie. Your question to any one of the guests that are here on the podium today, and if you could, please speak up.
I'd like to ask the ANC. I've been in council since 2006, and since 2006 the ARP from Alexander has been a problem. And I'd like to find out from him, what are they going to do about decanting the people in Alexander that have been waiting for housing for all these 15 years? It was a national key point. It was tossed and turned from council, and then it went to the province, and now it's back with the council. So we actually don't know what the future of Alexander is. They keep using Alexander as a political football every time there's an election. And I'd like to hear from him what is the progress they've made with the province and national on how they're going to decant Alexander.
Well, let's hear from the NC representative there, Malu. I mean, it's a fairly straightforward question there on housing.
No, thanks for the question, and I'll try to respond on the question. One, it will be incorrect to suggest that nothing has ever happened on the Alexander Renewal Program. Two, to suggest that there's never been decanting would be incorrect. There was decanting. One, communities were taken to Bramfisherville to decant Alexander so that you can create space with an intention, of course, to keep a certain number of the population in Alexander, then you can then rebuild houses in Alexander. So that program was there. But what we're experiencing consistently in Alexander is once you decant, you still get people coming back into Alexander, leaving Bramfisher itself because they feel it's far from Sandton. So there's quite a number of ideas that you need to bring, and part of the program we want to do is to then build in areas of Marlborough where you have factories that will now be turned into housing projects, and the land just neighboring Alexander, you'd want to use that so that you can deal with the matter of housing. And in fact, where we are ready to begin to build houses in that land so that communities in Alexander could be moved. You must also accept that there are also landowners in Alexander who own the land. Or property owners in Alexander, that you need to accommodate them in the process of ensuring that you change the face of Alexander.
All right, Nick, is there another question?
Well, let's hear from one of our ANC supporters that are gathered here. Zanette Mchabe is here, part of a local ANC branch. Who do you have a question for? Any other political party besides the ANC? And if you can, please raise your voice.
Actually, I've got a question for the DA. The question is, you failed dismally in the Western Cape, as I am coming from the Western Cape. If you look at your campaign, it's mainly focused on the suburbs or suburban areas of the Western Cape. But if you look at the black-dominated areas of the Western Cape, which are your Kailicha, your Nyanga, and etc., you would see that the crime rate has escalated. And secondly, you are only showing your improvement in the white-dominated areas, and you have not done much where there is black South Africans. And if you want to now rule within the Gauteng province, what difference will you bring? Because you failed dismally when it comes to the Western Cape, and we are sitting here today, and you are promising much for Gauteng. And as a resident of the Western Cape, formerly coming from the Western Cape, in a local black community that is Kailicha, you have failed. People are living in areas where they are sitting in shacks, where water is constantly coming in their houses when it's raining. And today you are coming to promise a better life, but you are focused in the Western Cape. You are mainly focused on the suburban areas where white people are dominated. Secondly,
let's give the DA mayoral candidate a chance to respond. We also want to have other political parties also ask various other candidates. Perhaps you, Palatse, have a response to that?
Thank you so much for that question. There's a difference between perception and reality, and there's a lot of data out there to show what's really going on. Stats SA released a study that in 2019 that looks at how different political parties are serving particularly poor communities. And the Western Cape actually came out #1 in the country with regards to provision of water to the poor, electricity to the poor, sanitation to the poor, and solid waste management to the poor. I know there's a growing narrative, and it's unfortunate because a lot of people just consume it because they hear it in the media and wherever else. But the data will not lie. And this is Stats SA. It's a very well-recognized research research organization, and we trust them even with our census. In terms of crime, the DA is fighting very much at a national level for a devolution of policing to lower levels of government, provinces and local governments, so that we can have a better handle of safety at a local level. And within the current framework, we're doing what we can within the IGR framework, the Intergovernmental Relations framework, and we're doing what we can with our metro policing, for instance, but we definitely need to see a devolution of SAPs, because yes, it is a problem, but it is a national function. Thank you.
Can I just ask you this question? Let me ask you this question like this. Are you satisfied with how services are rendered in Khayelitsha, Nyanga, Gugulethu, Philippi in Cape Town? Are you satisfied with the level of service delivery? Perhaps let me just, that's how I think the question should be asked. Are you satisfied with it?
Are things perfect? No, things are not perfect. We are growing, we are improving, we're doing more and more with each financial year with the resources that we have available. So under the current framework, with the current resources, the current legislative limitations and intergovernmental limitations, I do believe we've done very well, and we're certainly doing better than in any other part of the country, as the data is showing.
Right. Nick, we've heard then from the Democratic Alliance responding to that all-important question.
Well, yes, Molly, we've heard now from the supporters of the ANC and indeed also the supporters of the DA itself. Let's hear from the supporters of the EFF that are gathered here. We are joined now by an EFF supporter who has a question for the ANC and DA.
Sure. Thank you, Nick. It's just unfortunate that with the way things are set up, we couldn't hear a lot of what the candidates had to say and a lot of what other speakers on the floor had to say. But I would just like to ask the DA a question, because what the previous speaker from the floor said is very true. Even statistically, the DA does well in mostly suburban and, upper affluent, white-dominated areas. And I think that the DA is kind of gone into this whole flight mode when it comes to racial issues in this country. And my question for them is that how do they think that they're going to serve the deeply rooted social, structural racial issues in this city when it has been, an occurrent thing that even in their own party, they are failing to deal with those deeply rooted racial issues? I mean, you've had three prominent figures in the DA leave and cite on, a lot of platforms that one of the issues that they left the DA is because they felt like they were being pushed out because of some kind of...
Fatah, in a nutshell, what's your question, your direct question to the DA that's on the podium?
My question is, how are they going to deal with deep-rooted structural racial issues when in this city, when they're clearly failing to do it in their own party? Herman Mashaba was a good mayor who tried to do a lot but left the DA. And we know the background towards his exit. The second question
let's see if we're running out of time, unfortunately. Let's try and get Mpopalati from the DA to respond there while we try and give some more political parties an opportunity to respond.
I don't think we have sufficient time to get into the reasons why each person that resigned from the DA resigned. A lot of people have resigned from the party, not only black people. We've had white people resign from the party for various reasons. But for some reason, the media only focuses on the black people and again, to drive a particular narrative. Now, what are we doing to deal with racism, particularly, or racial issues in the city of Johannesburg? I think one of the examples is what we're going to do with apartheid spatial planning, for instance. So if you look at our national manifesto, it talks about densification of sparsely populated areas. And I spoke earlier about, looking at CBDs and working with city improvement districts to look at upgrading those areas, handing over buildings for redevelopment so that we can create housing close to opportunities. So that's one of the things that the DA is pushing for. The only thing we need to take care of is, and that the nodal review in Johannesburg was actually passed through council during our term. However, the only criticism we have now is that we did not take into consideration the infrastructure needs that have to accompany that nodal review, so that as we densify, we're not creating more outages. So in other words, we're investing in the infrastructure in those areas to make up for the population increase, so that people are catered for and they get basic service delivery, and the people who've been living there for long are also not compromised.
All right, thank you so much. All right, thank you so much for that response, Nick.
Well, we've had a chance now for the EFF to ask a question. We've had a chance for the DA and the ANC to ask a question. The IFP is actually part of the coalition government that's in Johannesburg at the moment. Let's hear from also one of the oldest political parties in South Africa. What is your question to which candidate on the podium?
Thank you, Nicholas. My question is directed to the ANC. I want to check with the Mr. Since the DA-led coalition, that was influenced by EFF, has given a rise in informal settlements simply because Herman Mashaba was trying to appease EFF. What is the GLU, the Government of Local Unity, going to do about these informal settlements that we have seen, since EFF and DA Mashaba thing, took over? So that's my question. It's directed to the ANC. Thank you.
All right, Malu, let's hear from the ANC on that one. Another very contentious issue in the housing space.
How are you going to deal with the issue of informal settlements?
Well, it's an interesting part. As you know, that post-2016, the government of the DA coalition, supported by the EFF, would have contributed to the mushrooming of informal settlement. We moved from 180 informal settlements to 280 as we speak today. And it's what is interesting and good for us is that the EFF itself has admitted that 70% of the population in those informal settlements are non-South African citizens, which poses a serious problem and a challenge for us in how we're going to respond to them. Now, in the normal course of doing things, we would have to start in the process of regularizing those areas so that we are able to respond properly and say these are South African citizens who qualify for housing, and how do we respond to them, and the rest that are undocumented and illegal in the country, how do we respond to them? But what we're glad about is that the EFF itself has admitted to have made a huge mistake that they'll forever regret by land invasion, and that land invasion led to foreigners who are not documented occupying the land.
All right, Nick.
Well, we're slowly but surely running out of time, and we've had the majority of the political parties that are gathered here today, supporters, address questions to the candidates that are here on the podium. We've got time for one more question from Al Jamar. Who's your question directed to? And please do speak up.
It's directed to the DA. So my question is, what is the DA's stance on apartheid and racism, and does the DA agree with how apartheid has been dismantled, if dismantled, and what is its stance on Palestine?
30 seconds, please.
So the DA believes in non-racialism. That's one of our key pillars, and that's something we're not willing to compromise on. We do believe that there is a need for redress, and we're committed to redress, and it's well expressed in our manifesto and in our policies. In terms of Palestine and Israel, we believe in a two-state solution, and we've said that quite clearly, and we believe that right now this is a local government election. We'd really like to focus internally and tell our residents what it is that we can do for them in the next election.
Thank you so much for your time. All right, thank you so much for your time. Nick?
Well, that brings us to a close of this debate here at the Johannesburg Council Chambers. We'll go back to you in studio there, Thabo.
Nicholas Bauer, appreciate you. Thank you very much tonight, as well as Malungelo Boy for bringing us that conversation tonight at the Council Chamber, joined there by the Secretary General, the Provincial Secretary for the ANC in Gauteng, Dada Morero, Dr. Mpho Palati, the mayoral candidate for the DA, IFP's Alcon Gobese, Tapelo Ahmed, as well as Tonik Mangidi, Funzi Ngobeni, and Sivuyile Matu. And of course, thank you for joining us tonight.